We're delighted you're here. Today, of course, is a very special day in that it is Easter, this celebration that has been celebrated in one way or another forever. Even before 2,000 years ago, this idea of the death and resurrection is a triumphant, returning, mythical understanding of life. And so for those of you who are new to our community, I'm going to just apologize right up front that if anything I say offends you, I apologize. It is never my intention to be offensive. I just have a very small filter between my brain and my mouth. And so, because I find that this is one of those topics that can be a little touchy for some people. And so we have been studying this month. We're working from a book called The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. Wonderful interview between Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell. Many of us that remember the 80s, I'll have a copy of it on our shelves. If you don't have one, it's one you should have on your shelf. It is a brilliant piece of two minds coming together to discuss a larger view of life. And why I love mythology, and I hold it in a high esteem. I don't use myth as a derogatory term, but rather mythological understanding has been with us since we began asking questions as a human race. It's questions such as, where did we come from? Why are we here? What is life? What is death? And so over the years, we have told stories about ourselves to understand who we are and what our life is all about. So when I speak of mythology and I talk about Christian mythology, if that's offensive, I apologize. It is not my intention. Although I have to say, I've come to the realization, you see, I spent the first years of my ministry in the South. I was in the buckle of the Bible Belt. So I realized I was walking on eggshells every time I'd say, let's just talk about the Bible and Jesus. Here I realized there's a culture, there's some other churches, you may have noticed them. But they say, we have the Bible, and then we have this other book. And it's like, oh, cool, then I can say, we have the Bible, and we have another book, different book, but it's another book that kind of helps us to understand that. As a child, I grew up in a traditional Christian church, and I liked it. I always felt a resonance with Jesus. I always felt a sense of connection with the divine, but I was challenged by an understanding and a teaching that I was taught, which was we hold truth, we get to go to heaven, others that don't hold the same truth don't get to go. And so it felt like a very exclusive club to me. And I just, as a child, I came in, I think, with this awareness. Jenny, we were talking about this. I came in this awareness that, wait a minute, aren't all spiritual traditions trying to speak to the same divine idea? When I so I left the church for a while because it really didn't fit and I really wasn't welcome. And they didn't run me out. I just want to be clear about that. They did not run me out. I self-selected. And then I began to look for a way to approach life. And I found myself in a center very similar to this, where I began to have a new understanding and appreciation of the teachings that I had grown up with. I began to have a more expanded understanding of the traditions that all of these faith traditions that we have around the globe that are trying to help us understand who we are. What is our true nature? How do we live the most full, dynamic life? And I began to appreciate, as I studied metaphysics, as I studied mythology, as I studied science and religion and philosophy, that there is a wealth of information that the masters have tried to encapsulate for us. And what I believe they were trying to help us understand, whether we're talking about the Buddha or Muhammad or Jesus or any of the great teachers through the ages, what they were trying to help us understand is that we are more than these physical bodies. There is a dimension to us that is transcendent of this earthly form. And even while we have a body, we are not the body. The spiritual essence of who we are inhabits this physical expression so that we might have an experience in this lifetime of touch and feel and sensation and all of the wonderful things that come with being human. So we are in truth both spiritual or divine and human beings. And our journey then is about figuring out how to bring that into balance and how to live a joy-filled life. But here's what I think you need to understand, in case nobody has explained this to you before. In your life, there will be suffering. You're welcome. Yeah, thank you. Now that we're all depressed, let's go home. No. It is a part of our human condition and our human experience that we will experience pain and suffering. But also in the pain and suffering is the opening and the awakening to the joy and the triumph. So the master teachers have helped us to try and understand this. Now, I know some of you, because I know you're metaphysicians, you're very enlightened, you om and you chant and you do all kinds of fabulous things with the knowing that you are transcendent of this human condition and you will not experience less than the fullness of life at any point in your time. In the off chance that there's this much darkness in that consciousness, I just want to share this with you, okay? Right? Now, see, as a child, I was taught, if you suffer well this life, term they use, suffer well this life, then later you can have an experience, hopefully, of heaven where all is joy, all is bliss, all is wonder, all of the time. How good is that? If, on the other hand, you don't qualify well, it's a whole different program. But I began to appreciate that perhaps the real message is how well do we live this life? And I have come to appreciate and understand that the teachers through the ages have helped us to understand what it is to be a divine being having a human experience, what it means to experience that divine potential in form. And yes, into our life there will come suffering. Joseph Campbell writes beautifully, he says, when everything is lost and all seems darkness, then comes the new life and all that is needed. So as we look at this Easter story, you see, it's interesting to me how we've just combined all our mythology into one holiday. So we have this very holy, sacred, beautiful symbology of the death and the resurrection of Jesus who became the Christ, and all of the pageantry and wonder that goes with that. And I love our new Pope, I just have to say. Big fan, you know? Not sure he feels the same about me, but that's another story. But right, because he's bringing forth that heartfelt mission of compassion and love and service. It's so beautiful. And so there is an idea for us to understand. Oh, anyways, I was going to say that, so there's that whole pageantry of the church and all that wonder and all of that is happening. And everybody's going to church today and getting all dressed up and putting on their finest clothing, which is part of a sacred ritual of the newness of life, of the fertility of life. You see these symbols, the bunny. Bunnies have been known to be kind of fertile, right? If you've ever had more than two, you had more than two before you knew it, right? And eggs are a symbol of fertility. You see, these traditions reside in the mythos of spring, of Easter, of coming forth. And so it is appropriate and right that this holy ritual and this holy understanding of a divine being who made their way into the world and helped us to understand a greater possibility, that fits in that same context. So I was reflecting on this idea about these divine beings that help us. You see, in the Buddhist tradition, now Buddhists believe in reincarnation, that the soul takes on many lifetimes so that the soul can work through karma, finding dharma, and finding their way. And so in the Buddhist tradition, each lifetime represents an opportunity to move through that which is unresolved and bring it to resolution, to become aware, to become enlightened, to become free. And so there are those individuals who then achieve that high level of awareness, who then no longer have to participate in the wheel of reincarnation. They have reached enlightenment, and they then can live in nirvana. But here's the beautiful thing about the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva then makes a conscious choice to return to this realm, to be the uplifting soul, to help and serve, to bring more greater compassion into the world. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Now think about the life of Jesus in that same context. You see, I had this profound realization just recently. As I was talking last week about sacrifice and bliss and how we have to make sacred our lives in order to experience the fullness, to experience the joy of who we truly are, to bring forth that which is the highest within us. Joseph Campbell invited us to follow that bliss, to follow that spiritual calling that longs within us to be experienced. And I realized that there is a big, big difference between sacrifice and martyrdom. Now, having practiced martyrdom for many, many years, this was a big one for me. This was my praying pose. Oh, God, let me suffer well for these unenlightened souls that I serve, right? Right? So sometimes when we are in that space of martyrdom, we feel like we are victimized by our circumstance, right? But you see, the bodhisattva chooses consciously to, having worked through their karma, to re-enter into the world to be of greater service. They sacrifice nirvana to be in the earthly world. So in this context, I look at the life and the story of Jesus of Nazareth and the powerful symbology that is resident within that. As I say, I'm a Jesus guy. I follow a way. Now, it's not the way that I was taught as a child, but what has become more expanded for me is the universal truth that keeps emerging. And so what we see in this life of Jesus was one who surrendered his little life so that the greater story could emerge. The greatest story ever told, as it is said. You see, that Jesus, the human, fell away so that the Christ could emerge and be a powerful force in the world. So therefore, I love the mythology, but I don't necessarily need to have everything be literally true or correct. In fact, if we looked for literal truth in our myth, we find confusion and misunderstanding. But when we look to the truth of symbolic being that emerges through these stories, we see time and time again that there is universal truth emerging. And so it is my belief, and it is the belief of our teaching, that Jesus was the great example for us rather than the great exception. I remember hearing Rocco Errico speak many years ago. And Rocco Errico is a brilliant teacher of Aramaic, the original language of Jesus. And he helps us to understand the Bible from that context. And he said, if it were that Jesus were the exception, if Jesus were somehow different, it would be like him coming and saying, I'm a duck, and I'd like to teach all of you chickens to swim. You're going, well, that's not really fair. You're equipped to swim. We got these little spindly legs, right? But if in fact Jesus was saying what I believe he was saying, greater works than these you may also do, that means that within each one of us there is an inherent divine potential. And our job, if you will, in this journey is to awaken to that and to bring more of the divine forward. But what we need to understand is that there will be suffering, thank you, and we are at choice as to how that we choose to evolve through that suffering. Do we become bitter? Do we become angry? Do we become martyrs, victimized by what life has done to us? Or do we see that as a part of our holy and sacred journey that is calling forth the highest that is within us? You see, this theme of death and resurrection is not something that happens at the end of your life. It is something that happens all through your life. That continually we are dying to our old way of being so that the new can emerge. But you say to me, oh, Uncle Marty, I don't like that program. I want my new life. I just want to carry all my baggage with me. And I say unto you, that is not the program. And so we find ourselves again and again as newness is emerging. You see, I think about the parents. As a new child is being born, they die to an old way of being. Right? Sorry, in case they didn't tell you this either. Right? You evolve into being a parent. That something new becomes the most important thing in your life. Sure, it was fun. You know that passage from the Bible that says, when I was a child, I acted like a child, but when I became a person, I needed to act like a person. Right? When I became an adult, I acted like an adult. You see, spiritual awareness happens to us over and over and over. And so we're saying, aha, here's my prayer. I went to God, trying to figure out my life. What am I supposed to do with my life? Divine presence, please guide me, lead me, tell me what to do with my life. Marty, become a minister. Excuse me. I'm pretty sure you did not understand the question. Right? Does anybody else do this? God, give me guidance. Oh, no, not that guidance. No. One of my favorite movies of all time is a movie called Private Benjamin. If you've seen it, Goldie Hawn is this little rich girl who's invited, has this tragic moment in her life, and she's invited. So she goes to a recruiter, and the recruiter says, join the army. It's fabulous. We've got little beachside condominiums, and we have a nice little exit. So she's like, cool, sign me up. Then she gets in the army, and she has Sergeant Mean, I don't remember what her name was, who's like, oh no. But she says at one point, she says, oh no, not this army, the other army, the army that I joined, right? And that's how we feel sometimes, like, no, not this life, the one that I joined. Some of you even came into this teaching because they said, change your thinking, change your life. You can have it all. You can be rich, you can be thin, you can be prosperous, you can have loving, nurturing relationships. You can have it all. Come on down. And so you sign up, you join the class, and you're like, cool, this is so great. Not only can I boss my friends and family around, I can boss the entire universe around. Hello, there is a heaven, and I am in it now. And that works for a while. And then this realization that we're not here to feed our egos. We are not here to manifest everything so that we can be greedy, corrupted beings, but rather we are here to extend the compassion and love of the divine. If you call that the Christ or the Buddha, it does not matter to me, but there is something more. And so into our life, there does come suffering. And it is in those moments of suffering that we begin to be awakened to our divine potential. You see, I have had the privilege of visiting many a person in the final days of their life as they are making the transition from this experience of life into the next. And I've done it enough times. Now, I don't have, empirical data. This is just sort of what I experienced. But so far, I have not gone into a hospital room or into a home where somebody is making their transition and had them say, Marty, I've been thinking about this. And as I look back at my life, I wonder if I'd made a few adjustments to my portfolio if I couldn't leave more behind. It doesn't happen. The regrets that we hold are not about what we created, what we manifested. The regrets we hold, if we hold any, is about how we treated others in our lives. So onto this planet comes enlightened souls. Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus, and so many more who say, turn away from the realm of condition, recognize the truth of who you are. The Master taught us when he said, please, my friends, understand this, that the kingdom of heaven is not here, it's not there, in other words, it's not outside of you, but rather the kingdom of heaven is within. Now, who knew? Right? Who would have thought to look there? And he said this, if you will seek first this spiritual dimension, then everything else shall be added unto you. So in this story, in this awakening, again, if you look, I won't spend all day, I could, but I won't. If you look at the story from a symbolic point of view, there is that willingness, that point of surrender. You see, what I love about the story is once I learned to see Jesus through the context of human being bringing forth divinity, then I could relate. And I think about Jesus in the garden. Now, a very enlightened soul, willing to serve the divine in meaningful and powerful ways, going about his ministry, healing here, blessing there, touching people's lives in magnificent ways, teaching this fundamental truth. And then the realization comes that you know how this is going to end. You see, we're not particularly kind to our great teachers, are we? I was thinking about this, how into the garden, the prayer is, God, can I renegotiate? That's really what it is. Take this cup away. It sounds better, but really it's like, can we renegotiate? Yes, I know I said I'd be of service, but this? And as you hear the surrender, you see the making the sacred, because in that story, the human falls away and the divine is revealed. In the powerful symbology of the death, the emptiness. See, don't forget the period in the tomb. The emptiness. And then the rebirth and the resurrection of an eternal life that is greater than form is one of the most powerful symbolic stories that is happening for us. So we can have in our very lifetime the same experience when we are saying, oh, no, take this away from me. And then we surrender to it because we're no longer sensing that we are victims to our circumstances, but willing participants, allowing something greater. And so when that is falling away from us, we don't try and grasp it. We simply open our hearts. We surrender to the possibility, for we know that there is a greater truth that is emergent through us. I was reflecting about the great teachers that I hold, the great heroes that I look to for inspiration. Certainly Jesus is one. But I was thinking about Abraham Lincoln and his stand for equality. Thinking about Martin Luther King standing before a nation and saying, there is a better way. And I look forward to the day when we hold hands. We don't base what we see on color of skin, but on the content of character. That high vision that we are all one. I think about Mahatma Gandhi, who stood in peace against the greatest empire in the world. and said through nonviolent participation we can change the world. And I realized that all of these great examples that we have, we killed. Yeah, so that's what I always like to say. Just because you're an enlightened being, don't expect that everybody's going to go, yippee. Right? But I think, so I go back to my hero Martin Luther King, just days before he was assassinated, giving that powerful, powerful speech that says, I may not get there with you, but I have seen the promised land, and we shall overcome. You see, Jesus was saying that same thing. I have seen the greater possibility. I am telling you that if you will awaken to who you truly are, then this is your inheritance. This spiritual dimension is who you are, and there is a way of living fulfilled in the life. Be not dismayed by the ways of appearance. You see, great people see a vision of possibility and live their lives in such a way that they are committed fully to being that presence. And when we move into that place, we do not have to die literally to our old way of being. But symbolically, you know what I'm talking about here. We have to be willing to surrender to our old ways. We have to let some part of ourselves die so that the new can emerge triumphant. In the story of this, it is not, as it says in Course in Miracles, too often you focus on the crucifixion when the real message is the resurrection. It is life emerging triumphant. You may be experiencing these, because I think we all are, to some degree or another. We are experiencing our old falling away. And there's a part of us that says, no, I want that. I know it doesn't work, but I still want it. It's comfortable. At least I know what to expect, right? But when we can die to our old way, when we can move into that symbolic understanding that we are one with the divine, and that the divine is seeking its vessel and its vehicle through which it can be revealed and expressed through us, then we move into the symbology of that cross between spiritual and human. And we live in such a way that we begin to understand our greatest power and our greatest gift is to bring forth the compassion that is within us. Joseph Campbell quotes a wonderful idea where he says, this explanation of the crucifixion is that the Son of God came down into this world to be crucified, to awaken our hearts to compassion, and thus to turn our minds from the gross concerns of raw life in the world to the specifically human values of self-giving and shared suffering. I don't know where you are in your life today. I don't know if you feel like you're on the cross and you're saying, how did I get here? This perfectly planned life I had is not happening. Or perhaps it has already gone away. And you're in that empty space of the tomb, going, well, ain't nothing happening here. Right? Or maybe you're beginning to emerge triumphant and you're beginning to understand that there's a new possibility. Or maybe you don't even know any of this is happening. You're still like, hey, isn't this fun? I'm so happy. I'm using The Secret. I don't know where you are. But I know by the fact that you're human, you're going to go through this cycle. So I'm just giving you a little loving advice here. You can either go with it willingly or go with it struggling. It's your choice. What I've begun to appreciate and understand is why not just let go? This difference between making sacred between sacrifice and being a martyr. No one is called upon to be a martyr here. But we are called upon when we step on this spiritual path and we say, you know, my spiritual life is important to me. Something is calling within me that says I must recognize the truth of who I am. Then some of the forms of which we have become attached will fall away. The Buddha said to us, our suffering comes from our attachment or our resistance. The Master, in his final words on the cross, says, forgive them. Even in that moment, inviting us to a compassionate way of being together. It's a beautiful, beautiful passage. Now, back in the days when I judged people, okay, yesterday. I forgot to just love. That's what we're called for. We're all on a journey of evolution, of becoming our highest self, of allowing something more to be happening. The great hope that we take from this holy day is that we are more than this physical being. And as we release our attachment to the physical, as we choose love and forgiveness over everything else, then something new, something powerful is born and emerges triumphant. I bless you on this holy day. Let us pray. As we simply turn inward, honoring and acknowledging this one life, this one divine presence, this infinite being that is forever and ever seeking its highest self-expression. And I know that it is in this presence that we live and move and have our very being. Nearer than our breath, closer than our hands and feet, it is written. This divine presence is awaiting our recognition of it. And so we move into that spiritual awareness that the one life is our life. The very presence of the divine that has revealed itself through all of the great teachers through the ages is awaiting our recognition of it. Greater works than these you may also do, it is written. And so we say yes to that divine life within us. We say yes to the life that is resurrecting itself even in this moment, emerging triumphant over all condition. We recognize our true holy spiritual nature is one of divine being. That it is said that we are created in the image and in the likeness of that presence, which is to say that those qualities of spirit are our qualities. So we honor and recognize and know the quality of wholeness, allowing it to be revealed as perfect health, as well-being, as vitality. We claim our well-being. We know that we are abundant beings right here and right now, for we are one with the source and the substance of all that is. We allow our hearts to be open to the joyful flow, graciously giving, joyously receiving of our infinite bounty. We bear witness to the transformative power of unconditional love, so embodied in the life of Jesus. We forgive ourselves, for we knew not what we did. We forgive others, for they know not what they do. But rather we choose to love, to forgive, to release, to move into this present moment where all possibility resides. And we call forth that which is within us. In this holy and sacred moment, we are saying yes to the fullness of life. We are saying yes to our divine potential. We are saying, yes, use me for your highest good. How good and powerful it is to be in this state of surrender. And so we recognize in this moment that we are blessed. We are blessed in ways seen and unseen. And so we give thanks for those many blessings. We extend a blessing in this moment. We bless this spiritual community, that we may continue to seek to be a bright light in the world, a place of hope, of refuge, of truth, of love, of compassion. Knowing that we are divinely guided and abundantly supplied. We extend a blessing to our brothers and sisters around the planet this day. For we are recognizing there is more that binds us together than that separates us. We join hands in brotherhood and sisterhood with all humanity. We're sensing and feeling and holding a high vision for a world that works for all, for a planet at peace, for a planet in harmony with itself. We're calling forth that new, higher possibility, willing to be a vessel through which that is revealed. And as always, as is our tradition, we bless all priests, all rabbis, all ministers, all teachers, all imams, all teachers of all faiths. For we know and honor and celebrate the many pathways to divine understanding. We bless them all, we name them good. And so it is in joy and gratitude that I am giving thanks in this moment, releasing this word that we have co-created into that dynamic law of mind to reveal itself in perfect timing and in divine right order. I give great thanks. In joy and gratitude, then, I simply release this word, knowing that it is so, as together we say, and so it is.